Good evening. Today I'll be talking about trust. Pilots flying through thick clouds sometimes experience vertigo. This means they lose their sense of knowing whether they're flying upwards or downwards. Many, following their untrustworthy senses, have crashed into the ground. Good pilots rely on their equipment to show them exactly what angle they're flying at. In the same way, many Christians give up on faith when feelings of doubt, guilt, fear, and worry overwhelm them. When this happens, we should distract our feelings, rather trusting in God's unchanging promises and faithfulness. Pretty soon, He'll have us flying the right side up again. Let's look at Mark chapter 4, verse 35 to 41. And it says, "That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, 'Let us go over to the other side.' Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, don't you care if we drown?' He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, 'Quiet, be still.' Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, 'Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?' They were terrified and asked each other, 'Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him.'" In this book, we see that Jesus leads us in a certain direction. Sometimes as we obey him, we may experience stormy times and things become difficult. When this happens, we feel like Jesus is not doing anything to help us, and he doesn't seem to care. But he does. Since he's in control, he doesn't panic. This is why he could sleep. Our lack of trust in him makes us fearful, but he can end the storm anytime. Why does he allow storms to come our way? He does this to develop our faith in him, because faith untested is not real faith. In the midst of every storm, remember that God's grace can and will sustain you. The second question is, how do we grow in trust? We should remind ourselves that Jesus is with us and he does care. He made promises that he will keep. He has the power to change any situation, but until he does, we must trust him. If we don't, our emotions will overwhelm and shipwreck us. We must hold on to the promises God makes to us in his word promises, like in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5, "I will never leave you, I will never desert you." Romans chapter 4 verse 17 to 21 talks about how God may reveal aspects of his future for you. Then obstacles can rise and make his plan seem impossible. Let Abraham learn from Abraham how to trust God. God promised Abraham that his wife will have a child. Sarah was too old to bear children, but Abraham never lost faith. Faith holds onto God's promise. His word is our anchor. Faith focuses on God's creative and resurrection power. What's impossible for us is possible for him. Faith doesn't pretend that all is well when it isn't. Abraham faced the brutal facts. So should we. Our faith grows stronger when we worship and glorify God. When God leads us in a certain direction and you face a setback, don't step back. God is planning your comeback. Faith is trust, and without trust in God, we will never be his. It is entrusting our lives to God's care. God wants us to have faith and not fear, the will of trust. Psalms chapter 56 verse 3 tells us, "When I am afraid, I will trust in thee." Fear is the glue that keeps you stuck, but faith is the solvent that sets you free. Trusting God does not mean believing He will do what you want, but rather believing He will do everything He knows is good. Psalms chapter 3, verse 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight." At this juncture, I would like to tell you that you should never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. My name is Timothy Kamore. Thank you.